A young nurse was stabbed 5 times defending a veteran's K-9, and 24 hours later, 200 Navy SEALs showed up for her. It was a cold Tuesday evening in Los Angeles when Mia clocked out after her hospital shift. She was starving, her body aching from 12 hours on her feet. Without thinking too much, she turned down a side street and headed for a small diner she'd been to once before, just a few minutes' walk from the hospital. It was a simple place that served hot coffee and food she didn't have to think about. She pushed the door open and felt warmth rush over her as the bell above jingled. The smell of fresh coffee and grilled sandwiches wrapped around her like a blanket. She chose a booth near the window, dropped her bag beside her, took a breath, and forced herself to relax. A waitress approached. Mia ordered coffee immediately, then added a sandwich almost as an afterthought. As she waited, her eyes drifted around the room. And that's when she noticed him, an older man sitting alone at the counter. His back was slightly bent, shoulders broad but slumped, gray hair, deep lines on his face. At his feet lay a K-9 service dog, its vest faded but recognizable. She watched him for a moment. He didn't speak much to anyone, just sipped his coffee and occasionally patted the dog's head. The animal stayed close, eyes alert but calm. Something about them felt familiar. Her father had been like that. Silent strength, the weight of the past in every movement. Mia's coffee arrived. She sipped it slowly, watching steam curl upward. For the first time all day, she felt safe enough to let her mind drift. She barely noticed the bell ring again when the door opened. 2 men entered, loud from the moment they walked in, laughing at a private joke that didn't sound funny. Mia ignored them until they sat too close to the veteran. She saw the older man stiffen, his fingers tightening around the coffee mug. Then she heard one of them sneer, "Hey, check out the mutt," his friend snorted. "Too old to do anything now." They both laughed. "Look at the old man trying to look tough with a dog. Probably pisses himself at night." Mia's grip on her cup tightened. She stared at them, willing them to stop. But they didn't. "Hey, old man, does the dog even bark, or is it just as useless as you?" The veteran didn't respond. He kept his gaze fixed on the counter, jaw clenched. The dog whined and pressed closer to his leg. Mia had had enough. She spoke clearly, anger sharp in her voice. "Leave him alone." The words hung in the air. Conversations in the diner slowed, then stopped altogether. One of the men turned to her, lip curling. "What?" "You heard me," Mia said. "Stop. He hasn't done anything to you." The man's eyes narrowed. His friend cracked his knuckles. "This doesn't concern you," the first one said slowly. "It does now." Her voice stayed calm but firm. For a moment no one moved. Then the man slammed his hand on the table, rattling plates. He stood up, pushing his chair back with a scrape. "Come on," he muttered to his friend. "Let's go." But before they left, he paused by Mia's booth. He leaned down, voice low. "You'll regret that." His eyes were flat and cold. Mia didn't flinch. She met his stare until he straightened and walked out. The bell over the door rang sharply as they vanished into the night. The diner's silence was heavy. People slowly resumed eating, but no one spoke to her. The veteran turned and met her eyes, gratitude and a flicker of shame shining there. "Thank you," he said quietly. "Don't worry about it." The waitress refilled Mia's coffee. She forced herself to finish a few bites of her sandwich, but her stomach was tight. The warm air felt stifling now. She just wanted to be done. She paid the bill and left a tip. As she grabbed her bag, she noticed the veteran sliding off his stool. He moved slowly, careful with each step. The dog stayed glued to his side. "Heading out?" she asked. He nodded. "Mind if I walk you to the door?" He hesitated, then nodded again. They stepped outside together. The night air bit at her skin. The veteran pulled his coat tighter. The dog pressed against his leg, eyes flicking down the dark street. They'd taken only a few steps when Mia spotted them, the same 2 men, leaning against the alley wall, half hidden in shadow. She stopped. The veteran stopped beside her, confusion turning to fear. The men straightened. Well, one of them said. "Look who decided to come out." Mia's heart pounded. She shifted slightly, placing herself between the veteran and the men. "Just go," she said. "Leave him alone." "Still running your mouth?" the other sneered. He stepped forward. "Don't," Mia warned, but they weren't listening. One of them pulled something from his pocket. The blade caught the streetlight for an instant. Mia didn't think. She pushed the veteran behind her. The dog barked wildly. "Run!" she hissed. But it was too late. The man lunged. Pain exploded in her side. She felt the blade go in once, twice, 3 times. She gasped, clutching at the wound, trying to hold herself together. The veteran shouted. The dog lunged at the attacker, teeth bared, but was kicked aside. Mia tried to stand her ground, but another stab sent her to her knees. She hit the pavement hard, her vision blurred. The old man screamed her name. The dog's barking was frantic. The attackers fled when headlights swung around the corner, someone yelling for help. Tires screeched as a car pulled over. Mia felt hands on her. Heard someone say, "Stay with me." But it sounded far away. She tried to speak, but blood bubbled in her mouth. She thought about the veteran, the dog, her father. Then everything went dark. Chaos erupted the moment the ambulance doors flew open. Paramedics shouted vitals as they wheeled Mia through the emergency entrance. Blood soaked her scrubs. The gurney rattled over tiled floors. Bright overhead lights stabbed through the heavy air. She was unconscious, pale, clammy, blood leaking through the compresses pressed to her wounds. 5 stab wounds, abdomen and flank. "BP's crashing! We're losing her!" A team of nurses and doctors scrambled around her. 4 lines were jammed into her arms, oxygen forced over her mouth and nose. The charge nurse barked orders to clear a path to trauma. Her clothes were cut away in rough, efficient motions, ugly gashes exposed, some still pulsing blood with every faint heartbeat. "Get me an EKG, now," snapped the trauma surgeon, already gloved and ready. Mia didn't hear any of it. She was drifting deeper into the void. The veteran had followed as far as security allowed, shouting her name hoarsely. When they stopped him, he pressed against the glass doors, hands splayed, eyes wide with terror. His K9 sat beside him, whining in confusion, refusing to move away. Inside, nurses who had worked countless shifts with Mia fought to keep steady hands. She was one of their own. A young nurse, Angela, held the blood bag high, trying not to tremble. Another friend, Sam, helped keep Mia's airway clear, biting back tears. "Come on, Mia. Stay with us," someone whispered. Outside the OR, the veteran paced relentlessly, mind replaying the attack in a loop, every scream, every bark, every flash of the blade. The dog, trained for war but helpless here, whined constantly, letting out the occasional sharp bark as if demanding to be let in. Staff tried to comfort the old man, but he shook them off. He couldn't sit, couldn't speak. He just waited. Inside the OR, surgeons worked under harsh white lights. The smell of blood and antiseptic filled the air. Monitors beeped in frantic, uneven rhythms. "She's bleeding out. Suction. Clamp here. Better exposure. She's going into shock." The lead surgeon paused, staring at the gaping wound. "Pack it. We're running out of time." A hush fell over the team as they braced for the next crisis. Word spread through the hospital like wildfire. Mia's co-workers gathered outside the OR doors, scrubs still stained from their own shifts, faces tight with worry. Angela sat against the wall, knees to her chest, shaking. Sam stood beside her, hand on her shoulder. Neither spoke. Another nurse, Linda, arrived fresh from pediatrics. "What happened?" "They stabbed her," Sam said flatly. "Jesus!" Linda sank to the floor beside Angela and took her hand. Hours dragged by. The surgeons moved between hope and despair. Every artery tied off, every vessel sealed, felt like a small victory, but new bleeds opened just as quickly. "BP's dropping again. Hang more blood." Outside, the Veterans Club started to arrive. Old men in battered leather jackets, caps with unit insignias, men who knew the weight of violence and helplessness. They didn't try to comfort the veteran, they just stood with him. The service dog lay at his feet but kept its eyes fixed on the doors, ears pricked, body tense. Mia's friends took turns updating them. "She's fighting. She's in surgery. She's still alive." No one slept in the family room. Coffee went cold in paper cups. A security guard stood by, letting them stay past visiting hours. Doctors emerged every few hours, faces solemn. "She's lost a lot of blood. We've controlled the major bleeds for now, but she's not out of danger." Each update was met with silence. The veteran leaned against the wall, eyes closed, muttering prayers only he could hear. Inside the OR, the margin between life and death narrowed to a knife's edge. The surgeons worked on, exhaustion etched into their bones. Nurses swapped shifts but refused to leave her side. Instruments clattered into trays, the suction roared, monitors beeped. At last a doctor leaned back and whispered, "Okay, that's the best we can do for now. Let's get her to ICU." They wheeled her out, pale as paper, covered in dressings and tubes. Machines beeped and hissed, doing the work her body couldn't. Hospital staff stepped back, watching silently as she passed. Angela and Sam followed at a distance, wiping their eyes. The veteran pushed forward when he saw her, stopped only by the ICU doors. He pressed a hand to the glass as they wheeled her in. The dog let out a long, low whine. Inside, nurses connected new monitors. The ventilator clicked. Lines dripped blood and fluids into her veins. Her heartbeat was faint, uncertain, but there. Doctors checked the monitors, conferred quietly. "She might make it," someone whispered. Outside, the Veterans Club stayed. More men arrived as word spread. They settled into chairs, leaned against walls, refusing to leave. The veteran didn't move from his spot. His dog eventually curled at his feet, exhausted but alert. Morning came, then afternoon, then night again. Mia didn't wake, but her heart kept beating. Every time her vitals dipped, the team was there, adjusting meds, hanging more blood, whispering encouragement. Angela and Sam took turns sitting with her, reading her favorite books aloud, reminding her of the funny things that had happened at work. They didn't know if she could hear, but they talked anyway. At 24 hours, her vitals began to steady. The lead surgeon checked her over, then allowed himself a small breath. "Looks like she wants to stay," he said. He turned to Angela and Sam. "Keep talking to her. She deserves every chance." Outside the ICU, the veteran finally slumped into a chair for the first time in hours. He buried his face in his hands. The dog lay against his legs, eyes half closed, but watchful. They weren't leaving, not until they knew she'd made it. It was still dark when the first headlights appeared on the hospital's access road, thin beams cutting through the dawn mist. The parking lot was nearly empty, except for a few nurses arriving for early shifts and a couple of orderlies sneaking a cigarette in the cold. They squinted at the slow, deliberate stream of cars rolling in. By the time dawn's pale light cracked the horizon, more vehicles had arrived. Dark sedans, battered pickups, motorcycles growling before cutting silent. The hospital's security guard watched, hand on his radio, but didn't move to stop them. Men and women stepped out. Some in uniform, trident pins gleaming under headlights. Others wore jeans and old leather jackets with unit patches faded by sun and time. They stood in silence, gathering in small knots, greeting each other with nods, tight grips on shoulders. No one laughed, no one smoked. Inside the hospital, the night staff glanced through the windows, stunned. "Who the hell are they?" an intern whispered. "I don't know," said a nurse. "But look at them. Something's happening." By 6 a.m., the lot was full, nearly 200 men and women. Some were active duty, hair cropped short, eyes scanning for threats out of habit. Others were older, gray at the temples but carrying the same unspoken code in their bearing. All of them were SEALs. Word had spread overnight about the young nurse who stepped in front of a knife for a veteran's dog. Not just any dog, but a retired military working dog who'd saved lives downrange, who had served with them. The news flew through group chats, late-night calls, the whispered network of old teammates. "Did you hear? A nurse protected him, stabbed 5 times. She's in surgery." So they came. Some drove all night. Some called out from work without bothering to explain. A few hadn't worn their uniform in years, but pulled it out anyway. No one told them to come. They just did. Inside the ICU waiting area, the veteran sat hunched forward, elbows on his knees, the dog's head resting on his boot. The old man lifted his gaze as dawn lit up the hallway. His eyes were raw, red from sleeplessness and grief. A nurse touched his arm gently. "They're here," she whispered. "Who?" She gestured toward the glass doors. He turned and squinted. Even from here he could see them. Rows and rows of men standing at parade rest, arms folded, feet planted, no talking, no laughing, just waiting. His mouth went dry. He squeezed the dog's harness so tightly that his knuckles whitened. "They're here for her," he croaked. The nurse didn't answer. She didn't have to. Word spread through the hospital in a hush. Staff peered through windows. Patients huddled at blinds. Even the ICU's tough old charge nurse blinked back sudden tears when she saw the lot filled with SEALs standing vigil. Doctors traded glances over clipboards. Even the security guard who'd first spotted them outside now stood respectfully by the entrance, nodding them in one by one if they wanted to wait in the lobby. Inside, they took up space in the corridors without saying a word. Some found a wall to lean against. Others sat in folding chairs dragged from conference rooms. A few stood straight, arms behind their backs, watchful. One old master chief in a battered ball cap walked up to the nurse's station. "She's still in surgery?" "No, she's stable. She's in ICU, but it's touch and go." He nodded. "Then we'll wait." And he did. They all did. The dog sensed something had shifted. It whimpered softly, tail thumping once, ears pressed forward. The veteran bent over and wrapped his arms around the animal's neck, pressing his forehead into its fur. "Look at them," he whispered, voice cracking. The dog gave a low, contented growl in reply, almost as if it understood. The hospital had never seen anything like it. In pediatrics, a kid with a broken arm pressed his nose to the window. "Mom, who are they?" "They're soldiers," she answered quietly. "Why are they here?" She shook her head. "Because someone did something very brave." Inside, nurses kept moving, checking monitors, hanging IV bags, but their eyes flicked again and again to the men waiting silently. The tension in the air wasn't fear, but reverence. In the ICU, Mia lay pale and unconscious. Machines beeped in steady rhythms. Her breathing was ragged but regular, forced by the ventilator. Tubes snaked from her arms. Bandages wrapped her midsection. Angela sat at her side, eyes rimmed red, gently brushing Mia's hair back from her forehead. "They're here for you," she whispered, even though Mia couldn't answer. They filled the whole parking lot. All these soldiers, SEALs, because you saved one of theirs, because you didn't even think about it, you just stepped in front of the knife. Angela sniffed hard, wiping her face. "They're not leaving, not until they know you're okay." Outside, the SEALs kept coming. Some brought coffee for each other and set it down untouched. Others dropped to their knees to greet the old dog, ruffling its ears and scratching its neck. The dog whined, tail wagging, recognizing the scent of brothers in arms. One SEAL with a lined face crouched beside the veteran. "He was with us in Afghanistan," he said, voice low. The veteran nodded, unable to speak. "You did right by him," the SEAL added. Then he stood and returned to his silent watch. Shift changes happened. Nurses swapped in and out. Doctors updated charts. Patients were moved, but the SEALs stayed. They refused to leave. When the ICU doors swung open for brief moments, they all looked up together, searching for the face of the girl they hadn't met but had sworn to stand for. As the sun rose and the morning carried on, the hospital's routines resumed. But nothing felt normal. Outside, the lot was full of men who knew exactly what sacrifice looked like. And they had shown up to repay it quietly, with presence alone. Inside, Mia slept on, fighting for her life, but she wasn't alone. Mia's eyelids twitched once, twice, then lifted with effort. A sharp, bright pain shot through her abdomen the moment she tried to move. She gasped, thin and raspy through the oxygen cannula taped to her face. Her vision swam, then sharpened. Bleach-white hospital ceiling, the rhythmic beep of monitors. 4 lines snaked from her arm, the bag above nearly empty, labeled with her blood type in bold red ink. She tried to speak but managed only a soft croak. Instantly, movement. Shapes shifted above her, resolving into faces she knew. Angela, tear-streaked but smiling wide enough to break. Sam, eyes rimmed red, exhaling a breath, as if he'd been holding it for days. A doctor she barely recognized from the night shift nodded with controlled satisfaction. "She's awake," he said quietly, as though saying it too loud might undo the miracle. Mia blinked hard, confusion cutting through the fog. She tried to lift a hand, but felt its weight like 1,000 bricks. It twitched feebly on the blanket. Angela caught it, held it tight, her thumb rubbing circles over Mia's scraped knuckles. "Hey there, hero," Angela whispered. "You scared the hell out of us." Mia tried to answer. Her lips cracked painfully. Nothing came out but air. Her eyes darted, frantic for understanding. "Shh, don't talk yet," Sam said, voice thick. "You're safe. You made it." Her eyes watered. Her chest shuddered with relief and disbelief. She remembered flashes, cold air, the knife, the veteran's shout, the dog barking. Blood. So much blood. Then nothing. "Vitals stable," the doctor murmured, watching the monitor. "She's fighting. Keep talking to her." Angela leaned closer. "You did it, Mia. You're okay. We're right here." Mia's eyes moved around the room, straining past the blur of tears. Flowers stacked on the window ledge. Crayon-drawn cards from the pediatrics floor taped to the glass. Beeping monitors. The low rumble of hospital machinery. But then, something else. Movement outside the window. She blinked hard, forcing her eyes to clear. Rows and rows of men stood on the hospital lawn. Some in dress uniforms, others in worn jeans and battered jackets, every one of them stock still, shoulder to shoulder, SEALs. Dozens, maybe hundreds. Silent, waiting for her. Mia's heart rate spiked on the monitor. A soft alarm went off. The doctor hushed it with a button press, nodding to the nurses to hold steady. Angela followed Mia's gaze and smiled despite her tears. "They've been here the whole time," she murmured, voice shaking. "Since the first night. They didn't leave, not once." Mia's eyes burned. "They heard what you did," Sam added, swallowing hard. "That dog you saved, he served with them. He's one of theirs. So you are too." She felt a sob claw its way up, but it hurt too much to let out. Instead, tears spilled from the corners of her eyes, running into her hairline. Her blurry gaze swung back to the bed's other side. And there he was, the veteran, older now, lines deep as scars, gray hair matted from days without sleep. Seated in a stiff hospital chair, his back hunched, hand locked around hers with the strength of a drowning man. His eyes were raw, shining with moisture he didn't bother to hide. The dog sat at his feet, tail thumping gently when her eyes found him. "Mia," the old man croaked, voice cracking. He bent lower, pressing his forehead to their joined hands. "Thank you, God. Thank you." She tried to answer, but couldn't. Her lips trembled, her chest hitched painfully. "Thank you," he repeated, over and over, as if the words were all he had left. His tears fell onto her blanket, darkening the pale hospital green. The dog whimpered once, long and low, as if echoing the old man's words. Angela squeezed Mia's shoulder. "You saved them, Mia, both of them. He hasn't left your side. Neither has the dog." Sam cleared his throat, wiping at his face with the heel of his palm. "None of them left. The SEALs, they said they wouldn't go until you woke up." Mia's eyes drifted back to the window. The morning sun crept up now, lighting their faces in warm gold. She could see the solemn lines, the way they all stood in formation, even though no one ordered them to. Silent. Waiting. Something cracked inside her. Not a bone this time, but that icy wall she'd built around her heart after every failure, every patient she couldn't save. It shattered under the weight of gratitude so fierce it nearly broke her. She let out a sound, part sob, part laugh. It hurt like fire in her wounds, but she didn't care. Her eyes locked onto the old veteran's face, and though she couldn't speak, he seemed to hear her anyway. "I'd do it again." He nodded like he'd heard the words clear as day. "I know," he whispered back. "I know you would." A nurse gently adjusted her pillow, careful of the tubes and bandages. The doctor checked the monitors one last time, satisfied enough to step back and let the moment breathe. Angela brushed Mia's hair again. "You did it," she whispered. "You made it." Mia closed her eyes, exhausted beyond anything she'd ever known, but her hand stayed curled tight around the veterans. Their grips locked as if to anchor them both. Outside, the seals stayed right where they were, a silent promise. They weren't going anywhere. And Mia finally let the tears come. If this tale moved you, if you felt the tension, the heartbreak, and the triumph, please support our channel by hitting the like button and subscribing. Your support means the world to us and helps us bring more thrilling, emotional, and inspiring stories your way. Leave a comment below and let us know what you think. Do you believe dogs have an extraordinary sixth sense? Share your thoughts and personal stories with us. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.